Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Dan, and this is assigned to the 29th of September 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So yesterday, of course, I discussed how I was fished out of my OP tokens, spent a lot of yesterday's episode discussing that actually, and that led to a lot of good discussions that happened today across Twitter, Farcaster, and the Daily Gwei Discord channel. Now these discussions mostly centered around how to prevent this from happening for other people, and that was the whole kind of point of my story. The reason why I kind of told the whole story and put myself out there was because that if I can prevent even just one person from getting fished, either a similar way to what I did, or in a way of just improving their security posture, then it's worth it for me. And I really hope that telling my story yesterday made everyone take a better look at their security practices. But there was this great video that Tim Robinson posted in the Daily Gwei Discord channel and then shared on Twitter, showing the differences between Metamask and Rabby, which is another browser extension wallet here. So you can watch this video for yourself. It's about 5 minutes long. The first half goes over what it looks like with Metamask, and we all know what it looks like with Metamask when you go to confirm transactions and things like that. So I won't kind of showcase that, but then he does it in Rabby, and Rabby is miles better than Metamask at warning you about things. There was, I believe, Tim said here, a total of 6 warnings, and you can't really see them on my screen, but you can see them in the video if you watch it yourself. There was a total of 6 warnings that Rabby throws up at you to basically tell you, hey, you're doing, you're approving all, like in this instance, you're approving all the OP tokens to this phishing contract, to this contract that looks dodgy, right? Or hey, this contract hasn't had many interactions with it, it's new, all those kind of heuristics that you can use to understand that you might be interacting with something that you wouldn't otherwise interact with. MetaMask doesn't actually show any of this, really. It has limited kind of security warnings. So I think, in the past, I've said that I still use MetaMask, and I use MetaMask as like a pass-through for hardware wallets, but I also use MetaMask with a bunch of different hot wallets that have basically no funds in them. They have like $20 of gas in them. And that's because I use them for various different reasons. I think there's at least 20 of them that I still use. And that's the reason why I still use MetaMask, honestly, is because I don't want to change over to another wallet and have to import all those wallets in. I do not want to mess around with seed phrases or anything like that for obvious reasons. So I'm just using MetaMask with those addresses. But because of that, it means that I've just been using MetaMask as my daily driver, because sometimes if you have multiple extensions installed, actually a lot of the time if you have multiple wallet extensions installed, what ends up happening is they conflict with each other, and then you just end up getting a lot of errors and annoyances that kind of pop up there. So I just defaulted to continuing to use MetaMask, especially because, as I explained yesterday, I had lulled myself into this false sense of security where I was basically like, it's fine, I don't need these security warnings. Well, no, I was humbled. Definitely, even if you think you're super experienced, these security warnings are really, really helpful. And you can see that in this video that Tim made. So kudos to him for making this video. You can go check this out. But essentially, I would say that at this point in time, using MetaMask, especially if like you're using it as like a new wallet, probably isn't a good idea. There's other wallets out there like Rabby, and Rabby isn't the only one. There's other ones out there that have just so many more features and specifically security features that using MetaMask really feels like you're using something from the Stone Age, to be honest. Now, in the past, I have said that MetaMask is obviously the wallet that's been around the longest. It's probably the most reliable. It's probably the most secure from a wallet perspective, in that there's probably minimal chance of bugs just because it's been around for so long. And these newer ones obviously have higher chances there. But if we're talking about actual kind of security warnings that get thrown up, MetaMask is not good in that department at all. And I think that a lot of the time when people get phished, it's through MetaMask, honestly. And then, as I said in the video, Tim shows Rabby and how it throws up all these warnings. And those warnings can be very, very helpful. Now, I did discuss in the Discord channel today that I don't know. The scary thing is that I don't know if these warnings would have stopped me, to be honest. Maybe they would have. It's kind of hard to prove it because I can't go back in time and use Rabby instead of MetaMask. But the reason why I said that was because, as I said yesterday, the way I got fished was the human element, where essentially I wasn't paying any attention and just confirming everything. So I kind of think to myself, would I have even paid attention to the warnings? Maybe I would have, right? Maybe the warnings would have, because they're flashing red at me, maybe it would have kind of diverted my attention away from the other stuff that I was doing and actually made me pay attention. But I don't know that for sure. But in saying that, I am going to try and begin the process of moving over to a different wallet and not using MetaMask anymore. As I said, I use MetaMask because of all those other wallets that I have that I use for various different things. But those things I can slowly phase out over time, and definitely kind of replace that with a different wallet. Rabby looks really good. I'm not going to recommend any one wallet, but from the video, Rabby looks really good. You should check out some other ones as well that Tim has listed here. He didn't list Tahoe, which I actually have installed. You can see this little dog icon up here. That's Tahoe, which was renamed from Tallyho. You should check out that one as well. But yeah, check them all out. See what works best for your needs. See, and the cool thing is you can just like start a new wallet and then just start interacting with things, right? Even if you haven't got any ETH in there, you can just start interacting with random contracts and see what kind of warnings it gives you. Does it give you good detailed warnings, or does it just give you kind of like high level warnings? And then maybe you can make your decision from there. But obviously, always, I recommend never keeping any significant amount of funds. And the word significant here is different for everyone. I mean significant in terms of like a percentage of your net worth, right? And what that percentage is really up to you. But I mean, for me personally, I would probably never keep more than a few percent of my net worth on a hot wallet, right? And Sazzle.eth is not a hot wallet, by the way, but I was using it as like a regular wallet. So the terminology is a bit weird here, but I consider, I mean, the industry standard is that a hot wallet is something that is like a browser wallet, or kind of like a mobile wallet, rather than like a hardware wallet that you have to kind of like physically get and kind of plug into a computer and stuff like that. Right, which has kind of the signing key offline, so to speak, right? Or in that kind of secure element. And a lot of mobile wallets are making use of this as well now, which is cool. But when it comes to browser extensions, they're definitely the least kind of secure here if you're using them as a hot wallet. But then you can have cold wallets, or I guess like hardware wallets that you are using as a regular wallet, which is what I do with Sazzle.eth, which is what a lot of people do. But then you can have wallets that you very rarely touch, and that's true for me with my staking wallet, right? The wallet that I stake my ETH from, and the withdrawal kind of address there, that's all done from wallets that I barely touch, right? And that's obviously not a hot wallet, definitely not. But yeah, so in terms of like keeping funds in a wallet that maybe you want to use for everyday spending, it's kind of the analogy of you wouldn't keep your life savings in your wallet in your pocket, right? You keep a lot of it in the bank, right? And you have some cash on you, and then obviously you have a way to access that cash with your card, but your card has spending limits on it. And this is where things like account abstraction comes into it, where when you have when it's built out more, when you have proper account abstraction wallets, you can have native spending limits built in. So potentially, I mean, I still wouldn't recommend this, obviously, but potentially you could have your entire net worth in your pocket, but because of those spending limits, in order to change those spending limits, you would have to have like a cold signer, like a hardware wallet signer to change that, and it'd be a multi-sig, of course. Obviously, multi-sigs are another solution here too, but it'd be a multi-sig, of course, and then those spending limits could be whatever you want them to be. So yeah, as I said, like there's a lot of different options here, and it's all about working out what works best for you. But the general rule of thumb is that you should never have significant amount of funds in something that is easily accessible, especially because with Metamask, when you kind of install it, it just shows you your seed phrase on the screen. And what a lot of people do is they literally copy that seed phrase over to like a notepad file, because it makes you confirm that seed phrase later. And if you do that and then like save that notepad file, and then even if it's like got a password on it, that's horrible security posture right there. Whereas with hardware wallets, the seed phrase never goes online, right? The seed phrase gets displayed to you. You write it down on a piece of paper. I mean, it can go online, obviously, or it can go on a computer, obviously, if you write it into a computer. But the best practice is to write it down physically, rather than writing it down on a computer, and then it just never touches it. So that's obviously much more secure from that perspective there. But anyway, I've talked a lot about this again, but I figured it was very, very important because, as I said, telling my story, going over this stuff, the whole point of doing it is to protect you guys from getting fished, because honestly, there is nothing worse than losing money. Even if it's not like a significant sum for you, there's nothing worse than losing funds to a phishing kind of attack like this, especially in such a dumb way like I did yesterday. I didn't, like, when it came to the money, I was just like, yeah, whatever. I more felt bad about the fact, or I was disappointed in myself that I fell for something so obvious and so stupid. And as I said, that was a humbling thing for me. It kind of got me to to really rethink my security posture here. And yeah, there was a lot of good discussions that happened around this today. But if you want to have more good discussions about this, do join the Daily Gwei Discord channel. Link is in the YouTube description below and the show notes if you're listening to the podcast, of course. There's a lot of great discussions happening in there, and honestly, I highly recommend it. And no matter how good you think your security posture is, it could always be better. And plenty of people in the Daily Gwei Discord channel are willing to help. So yeah, go check that out if you haven't done so yet. All right, on to some more positive news. So the ETH futures ETFs seems like they're going to go live next week on Monday or Tuesday. You can see here Eleanor from Fox Business had a scoop saying that Valkyrie would start offering exposure to ETH futures through its newly combined Bitcoin and Ether strategy ETF, which will, as I said, go live for trading, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. And Eric Balkanis here, who is a senior ETF analyst at Bloomberg, also said that VanEck, which is a different kind of firm to Valkyrie here, I believe, it is different. They just put out their press release for their upcoming ETH futures ETF, and they now have a ticker for it. So yeah, the ETH futures ETFs are confirmed. Now, what does this actually kind of mean? Like, what is the implications here? Because some people will say, and I've said it before, where like the futures ETFs are way less interesting than the spot ETFs, and that's true. But what the futures ETFs do is that they pave the way for a spot ETF. Because what I find funny is that the Grayscale case versus the SEC, the judge basically said to the SEC, like, you have no good reason to deny the Grayscale conversion of their trust to a BTC spot ETF since you have already approved Bitcoin futures ETFs, and there doesn't seem to be any difference between those products. So when you look at it like that, and then you look at what's happened with ETH futures ETFs launching, the same argument can apply. So what ends up happening is that the likelihood of ETH getting a spot ETF goes way up. And I know I've said before that I don't expect it to happen until probably 2025. That's still my general expectation in terms of like the earliest it could happen. But the fact of the matter is that before, in the past, Gensler has said that he believes ETH is a security, but I did mention the other day in his testimony, he changed his language a bit where he said the vast majority of crypto assets are securities, not everything except Bitcoin is a security, right? So it seems like either him or the SEC generally, whether they're intending to do this or not, are softening their stance here. Because a futures ETF being approved for ETH means that how can ETH be a security? Because it doesn't really make any sense. Futures ETFs are, from what I know, are regulated by the CFTC, which regulates commodities, right? And then when you kind of look at them, and if they approve a spot ETH ETF, it's also the same thing. It's like, why are you approving an ETF for an unregistered security, right? Or something that you claimed was an unregistered security. So I think that whole thing is dead, to be honest, in terms of the SEC trying to go after ETH. I know I've said before that it was basically a very slim chance that they would even attempt it, and an even slimmer chance that they would even be able to classify ETH as a security. And I think post-Ripple case, we've seen, and like the post-Ripple win, we've seen the SEC definitely soften their stance here, whether that be due to political pressure or whether that be due to something else, I don't know, but it is happening from my reading, and I'm very curious to see how the SEC acts going forward. Are they going to bring more enforcement actions against big players? Or are they just going to go after the small players and settle, like the obvious ones, like that NFT project from a few weeks ago that was very obvious about saying, hey, we're going to drive value to our NFTs, you know, and just really, it really looked like a kind of a security or an investment contract, really. But at the end of the day, that wasn't proven. It was basically just a settlement, and settlements don't set precedent. What sets precedent is courts. And as I said yesterday, the SEC is 0-3. They've won 0 out of 3 cases with the courts now. That DeFi case, Grayscale, and the Ripple case. So, you know, they want to go 0-4 with Coinbase. You know, the most bullish thing would be if they actually withdrew their lawsuit against Coinbase. But that would be bullish for crypto, but that would be really bad for the SEC because it would basically be admitting that they made a massive mistake going after Coinbase, and it would open themselves up to even more lawsuits, I think, as well. So, yeah, we'll have to see how that shakes out. But yeah, these ETH futures ETFs will go live for trading, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday here. And yeah, that's it on the ETF side. There's some news here from Coinbase today. So Coinbase has received regulatory approval to enable retail perpetual futures trading on their offshore exchange. Now, this exchange is that one that they launched out of Bermuda, I believe, and they got this approval from the Bermuda Monetary Authority. And this is, of course, available to non-US retail customers only. So, sorry, US people, you are being protected once again from being able to do what you want with your own money. But yeah, this is just more signal that the US is losing market share or losing out on market share to offshore entities. Like Coinbase has their onshore entity, but they also have this offshore one because the regulatory apparatus in the US does not allow Coinbase to offer these products to US retail customers, which is frankly quite ridiculous, right? That this is happening. Coinbase is a homegrown US company. You know, US startup, not a startup anymore, but obviously began as a startup in the US, now a publicly traded billion-dollar company that has created tons of jobs and generated a ton of economic activity for the US. And now the US is basically dragging their feet and the regulatory bodies are dragging their feet on giving Coinbase clarity. So Coinbase is like, well, screw you guys, we're going offshore. And they've done it in a very aggressive way here by launching their offshore exchange and now getting approval to enable perpetual futures trading contracts for retail, and basically everyone except people in the US, and I'm assuming like sanctioned entities as well, which includes the usual laundry list of like North Korea, Russia, and others like them, which is to be expected. But the US is among those entities, you know, standing by there, which has just always been insane to me. But yeah, that's the latest news there on the Coinbase front. All right, so Holesky did launch yesterday. I remember I covered it in the last few minutes of the episode, but just as I ended the episode, it launched. I had a bit of a bumpy launch at first. It wasn't finalizing. There wasn't that much participation. I think participation was as low as 45% for the first few minutes there. Then it kept creeping up, and we finally achieved finalization. And participation, I believe, is almost 90% now. So that's very awesome to see. Obviously, it being a test net, there's no like monetary incentive for people to get their validators back online as quickly as possible, but the fact that it's only a day later and we're already up to around 90% participation is great. Now, just to recap here, Holesky is a new testnet that was launched with 1.46 million validators, so just under double the amount of validators that are live on mainnet today. And the whole point of launching this testnet is to replace Girly and to also stress test the beacon chain at that validator count. So that's live and running, all well and good. There are a few different tools you can use to actually monitor this. So obviously the beacon chain tool that I've showed, but there's also another one called Dora the Explorer, which is a very, very good Explorer name here. You can see it on my screen. So this will show you a metrics around Holesky. So I'll link this in the YouTube description below. But participation, it's not at 90% just yet. It's around 85%, but still, I mean, that's fine. And yeah, this site will show you a bunch of different kind of details here, and currently it's forked up to Bellatrix, which was part of the Capella fork, I believe, and then the Capella. Oh, sorry, no, it hasn't forked to Capella yet. That's right, they were launching it, and then they were going to fork it to Capella, which is the Withdrawals upgrade for the consensus layer, so the Capella side of the consensus layer, and then there's no fork date for Dencun just yet on that. But yeah, I'll link that in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, speaking of Dencun, we got some updates from the latest All Core Devs Call number 171 here. Tim Byko did his usual thread. He went over a few different things like Dencun, Holesky's launch, a new private ETH transfer proposal, and a bunch more things. So the two things I really wanted to focus on was the Dencun updates and the new private ETH transfer proposal. So the TLDR of the Dencun updates is that Dencun DevNet 9 is launching today. 75% of the validators will be using Nethermind or Geth, with 19% using Base or Aragon, and 2% each with Reth and ETH.js. So pretty cool to see that Reth and ETH.js are actually going to be used on this DevNet as well. And then there was a kind of conversation here around short-lived DevNet 10 after DevNet 9, with a larger validator set to test those new churn limits as part of EIP 7514, which was that churn limit cap. And I think DevNet 10 might be the final DevNet before they start launching testnets. But I was thinking about the timeline around this today, and I was running through it. Honestly, guys, there's like a low chance that the Dencun's launching this year at this point. It's just, there's not enough time. Because if I give you the timeline here, DevNet 9 launches today, right? Let's say they do a Girly fork in mid to late October, then they do a Sepolia fork or a Holesky fork in early to mid-November, and then they do like an announcement in mid-November in order for to give 4 weeks notice to do a mainnet kind of release in mid-December. So that works, but let me give you some kind of nuance here as to why it actually doesn't work. So the reason it doesn't work is because the core devs have already said that they're targeting for an early to mid-November first testnet fork before DevConnect there, and then you have DevConnect. So the next testnet fork would probably not happen until early December, and then you're already out, right? You're already out of time here because there's no way that you're going to attempt to schedule mainnet before you've done at least the first fork and even like plan the second one. So I would say that at this point in time, it could be January. It could be pushed out to February. I don't know why it would be pushed out to February. It doesn't feel like that would make a lot of sense. But January, you know, as I said before, it doesn't matter if it's January or February and not December. It's like 2-3 months, guys. There's not really much of a difference there at all. But yeah, in terms of timelines here, unless these testnet forks happen like in October, I just don't see a reality where we could actually launch this on mainnet. And I don't think that the core devs would want to actually do a mid-December mainnet launch, because what happens then is that we do a mid-December mainnet launch and then everyone goes on holidays. So if the worst case scenario happens where something goes wrong with the network, or I guess like clients have issues with them, then it's not really going to be these people aren't going to be as fast to react as they otherwise would have been, because some of them, or a lot of them, will probably be on holidays, right? So yeah, I think that the core devs are probably going to target a Jan release, maybe into February. But as I said, it really does not matter. That's not much of a kind of like difference there. And they never actually gave a date, by the way. It was always my estimates. I think I got a little bit ahead of myself there at one point where I said it could happen in October. But I always said that I figured it could happen in November. But the fact of the matter is, I think that there's been more things that they needed to iron out before they could launch DevNet 9, which is launching today. I think they actually wanted to launch DevNet 9 2 weeks ago. So they're like 2 weeks maybe behind schedule there. And then obviously, as I said, the testnets aren't planned. Well, the first testnet is not planned to fork until early to mid-November. And this is also assuming that everything goes well and that the core devs feel comfortable enough with everything for them to actually continue along with scheduling a mainnet fork. So yeah, we can expect it probably January, maybe February, but yeah, I'm highly unlikely this year, I believe. But that's the Dencun update. The other update was this new kind of EIP that was proposed for private ETH transfer. So this is EIP 7503 called Zero Knowledge Wormholes. That's the EIP name here. So basically the way this would work, as kind of Tim describes it, the EIP proposes a scheme to allow private transfers by burning and reminting ETH. And there's a presentation you can view to check this out. And then Tim continues, in short, users would send ETH to a provably unspendable address, which looks like any other ETH address on chain. Then using a new transaction type, they could provide a proof that they burned the ETH and remint it at another address. Now, this sounds really cool and really relatively simple and straightforward, and a really cool way to do privacy on Ethereum, especially because it would be in protocol and native to the Ethereum network. There would be no extra trust assumptions or anything like that. But I think the main drawback, and they actually listed this in the EIP, is that if there was a faulty implementation of this EIP, aka a bug in it, people may mint an infinite amount of ETH, which will collapse the price of ETH. So that is the main concern here, and I think that is potentially a showstopper. Now, could this EIP be put, I guess, like on chain as a smart contract? Maybe with some modifications instead of being inbuilt into the protocol directly, but I don't think so. Maybe if you use like wrapped ETH or something like that, it'd be different. But the main kind of consideration here is the fact that if there was a bug, it could potentially lead to an infinite amount of ETH being minted, which would obviously require an emergency hard fork to fix. So the risk reward benefit here is not great. And also there's debate around whether this should actually be included in the core protocol itself. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on this, but that kind of like risk is pretty high in my mind, and it is a pretty bad risk as well. But I still encourage you guys to go check out the EIP itself and the presentation. It's linked in Tim Byko's thread, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, moving on. Swell have announced when they're going to enable withdrawals for their staked ETH as LST here, SWETH. So this is going to be happening in early 2024. So they've said here that the next upgrade called Barracuda will enable the redemption of SWETH for ETH through the Swell app, and that will be scheduled for early next year. So I guess like between maybe January and March here. And they say here that will enable the redemption of SWETH for ETH. So if you have been wondering when withdrawals were going to be enabled for Swell staking here, if you're staking with Swell, that's when it is there. Now, I know that a lot of people have staked with Swell now. They're actually top 10 liquid staking protocol. There's 44,000 ETH staked there right now, and they've been running an incentive campaign, things like that. But yeah, if you were worried about kind of like it being like a one-way thing right now, well, by early next year, there will be a two-way thing. You'll be able to withdraw from it, and everything will be all well and good there. All right, Intmax today revealed a walletless wallet, they're calling it. So no app or extension, no key management, and secured by fully homomorphic encryption here, or FHE, which has become a bit of a buzzword lately that you may have heard about. But I should have talked about this before when I was talking about wallets, but you should definitely go kind of check this out, this new walletless wallet and what it kind of looks like. I think there's a wait list for it or something like that. But basically, you can see here that there's like no key management, no seed phrase, no app extension, secured with your biometrics, things like that. So this is really the future of wallets, to be honest, guys. Like I was discussing before about the current options, but really the future of wallets is to abstract away all of those complexities. Like there is no way we're going to scale to mass adoption if everyone has to deal with keys, like private keys and seed phrases. That's not happening, right? And there's no way that we can have that happen without securing it by using things like biometric security on the iPhone, like Face ID, stuff like that, and securing it with different encryption schemes and ZK proofs and all that good stuff there. So yeah, Intmax is entering the game here with this. You should go check it out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so we have an update out of Espresso today. So Espresso has said that the Espresso sequencer recently released its third major milestone and testnet, Cortado, which I ended up covering, I think, a few weeks ago. And today they have unveiled the first live public demo of a shared sequencer. This demo not only supports multiple rollups, but multiple rollup stacks. And the stack that's being used with it right now is a Caldera. So they've introduced something called the Vienna network, which is a public devnet of an optimistic rollup using the Espresso shared sequencer. And you can check out the details of this in Espresso's blog post as well as Caldera's blog post, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But great to see progress being made here. Honestly, Espresso is moving really quickly with this shared sequencer stuff. I thought that this might take longer than it has, but you know, they launched their Cortado testnet, and then they've launched this kind of new public demo of a shared sequencer, and it seems to be working. I checked it out just before, and I guess like to get this to a point where essentially it will be integrated with the existing mainnet rollups might take a while, obviously for security reasons and stuff like that. But the fact that this testnet is live is awesome, and it's a public testnet too. So essentially, what it's doing is that it's integrated with an OP stack rollup and a Polygon ZK VM rollup for decentralized shared sequencing. So not only is it doing sequencing with two different rollups here, they're different rollup stacks as well. So it's not just an optimistic rollup here, but it's also a ZK rollup or a ZK VM rollup using two different tech stacks, the OP stack and the Polygon stack here. So that's really cool, because I think some people may have been under the impression that shared sequencing was limited to one technology type or one ecosystem. No, I mean, in practice, and from what I understand, Espresso's technology here could work with any number of different rollups built on different tech stacks, as long as they've opted into it on the sequencer side of things. Obviously, they're going to start small and scale it up over time, but this is very exciting for various different reasons. And if you want to learn more about this, obviously, you can go check out the blog posts, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, something that I came across, I guess, today that was posted a few weeks ago, actually on September 9th, was this new project called superbridge.app. Now, this is a new bridging project built by the guys at FuguWorks, and you can see here Harris announced it by saying, "Today I'm excited to show off something fun we've been working on lately, the Super Bridge, which is a native bridging experience for all chains as part that are part of the OP super chain." So you can see here the chains that are currently supported, which with more coming soon, all OP stack chains, of course, but essentially, I believe it is it bridges from L1 to L2, and then with L2 to L1 transactions, it's a little more tricky and requires 2 additional transactions on the L1 side. And you can see how the description here of how this is all kind of abstracted away here from doing an L2 to an L1 transaction. So this is pretty cool. Just another bridging infrastructure for you guys to use, especially as part of the I guess like the OP kind of super chain stack here. Definitely new, so as I always recommend, caution when interacting with new things, especially bridges. You guys know my kind of view on bridges here. But if you want to get full details about this, you can read Harris's tweet thread, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, last up here was an announcement out of the city of Buenos Aires. They have launched a blockchain-based digital ID service. Now, this, I believe, is built on ZK Sync Era, which is pretty cool since it's built on L2 here. It's known as Quark ID, and it relies partly on technology from an Argentinian-based startup called Extremian? Yeah, Extremian. And you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. But this is very cool. I've talked about digital IDs before and about how these digital IDs can really help different kind of like cities around the world manage identities for their citizens, right? Because right now, a lot of the identity stuff and KYC stuff is done with centralized databases that are routinely hacked and exploited, and data is stolen all the time. So what if we enabled everyone to just have their ID on their own personal device, secured by their own personal device, like with iPhone secured by the whole kind of by Face ID, right? And so we don't have this central storage of identification data or identity data, and everyone just owns their own kind of identity here. And really, all the government would store would be kind of like the ZK proof that basically says that you are who you say you are, right? So that's very, very cool. And the fact that this is going to be built on a roll-up as well is even cooler, because this is basically, I guess, one of the first examples of a real-world, like non-crypto native thing being built on a roll-up. So yeah, really, really cool to see this. But as I said, you can check out the website to check more information, to learn more about this, I should say, and check out the article from the blog to learn a bit more about it as well. But on that note, I think that's going to be it for this week. And I just realized I didn't miss an episode this week of the refuel. So I guess like I'm pretty proud of myself for that. It should be the norm for me not to miss episodes. But obviously over the past few months, I've been missing at least one episode a week. And was it last week? I think I missed 3 because I was actually in Bali for a wedding. I didn't say that at the time, but I was in Bali for a wedding last week. That's why I missed 3 refuel episodes. And you know what? Bali was actually a pretty nice place to be. That's a meme because Kyle Davies said that from 3 Arrows Capital. He said that on an interview on TV. But it was quite nice, and the wedding was pretty cool, and the weather was just spectacular as well. And Bali's pretty close to Australia. It's a very popular destination to go to for us because I think it's like a 2-hour time difference. Yeah, it's a 2-hour time difference and about a 5.5-hour flight, so there's basically no jet lag. It's not a long flight or anything like that. But yeah, that's where I was last week, but I had a lot of fun. But anyway, I'm not going to bore you guys with the details of my personal life. On that note, it's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks everyone.